Alrighty folks, thanks for tuning into the video. James Cards FC here with the long-awaited, well, I'm actually not sure if it's long-awaited for me to get this finished and put out, but it's my video on the entire history of the soccer card market. So I've been working on this presentation for about a month. Like I referred to in my fireside chat, if you watched that, I kept on starting it, didn't know how to go with it, where to finish it, but I have finally finished it today, and I wanted to go ahead and record this video to finally get it out to all of the subscribers out there. So we're going to be going through the entire history of the soccer card market, from where it started on the American side to through the pandemic and then post-pandemic, and maybe what we might see in the future for the market. So if you haven't subscribed already, feel free to do so, but without further ado, let's go ahead and finally get started with this. It is titled 0 to 100 to not really sure what's going to happen next. So there we go. Introduction. Over the past 3 years, the soccer card market has been a roller coaster. Prior to late 2019, soccer cards, while produced by some of the biggest brands in the hobby, this being Topps and Panini, were widely ignored by most sports card collectors. 2014 World Cup Prizm was a complete bust of a release on its release date, as well as its release year and the years following that, with numbered parallels of the checklist headliner Neymar selling for under $25 in its release year. I recently went back through my email history, and I can see the auctions I used to watch for Neymar colored prisms at that time, and there are some watch list items that were $25 for a purple prism out of 25, purple prism out of 99, and I'm disappointed that I didn't buy those then, but nobody was buying those then. So later on in 2017, Topps releases Topps Chrome Champions League, which is now seen as one of the biggest products for the soccer card market, along with 2014 Prizm. But much like 2014 Prizm, it was widely ignored, and 2017 Topps Chrome Champions League, in fact, included promotional packs that hobby shops could give out to customers for free to advertise the new product, and still nobody wanted them. People really didn't want soccer cards at the time, and so even though these stores were handing out free packs, people didn't want the free packs, and so a lot of these free packs went unused and untaken despite the fact that they were free, because nobody wanted soccer cards at the time. So it wasn't until 2020 that soccer cards really started to garner attention in a more mainstream sports card sense, and it's debatable as to whether it was because of the soccer card's own merit or not, and that's one of the main themes of the video that we'll be discussing today, whether soccer cards started to gain attention because of people enjoying soccer cards, or was it something else? So now that the sports card boom of 2020 and 2021 has come and gone, I wanted to review the role soccer cards played during the pre-boom, during the boom, and what we might expect in the post-boom era that we are firmly now in. So let's talk about 5 years before the boom. So the year is 2015. Germany are the champions of the world football, and Barcelona defeats Juventus in the Champions League final. 2014 Prizm World Cup, the first Americanized soccer set featuring a star-studded checklist and beautiful parallels, cost under $100 per box. The soccer card market exists, but it's an impossibly small group of niche collectors. So with just $500 at the time, you could have bought a Pele Alifa Bullet rookie, which is one of the entire grails on the market, or you could have also bought a Panini rookie sticker for Ronaldo in PSA 10 condition with that same $500. And with $1,500, you could have bought a Messi 71 Biz rookie in PSA 10 condition. As you can see here, it sold for around $1,600 in May of 2015. And so I put these other sports grails up there just so you guys understand that in other sports, things were already really, really expensive, but in soccer, even the grails of the grails weren't all that expensive and were very, very affordable. So the Michael Jordan Fleer rookie in PSA 10 was $17,000 at the time. The Mickey Mantle in a top grade of a PSA 8 was around $500,000, and the Jerry Rice rookie in PSA 10 condition for American football was around $11,000. So you can see in the other sports, things were already very, very expensive. Not, of course, what they're worth now, but especially when you compare them to soccer, soccer was insanely cheap in comparison to the other sports, because for the most part, nobody really cared about these soccer cards, even if they were the grails that now everybody is trying to acquire. So Moving forward quickly to 1 year before the boom, the year is now 2019. France are champions of world football, and Kylian Mbappe has been anointed the eventual successor to Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. The hobby actually doesn't really care about Mbappe. 2018 Prizm World Cup sits at the same $100 a box that 2014 Prizm did, and 2014 Prizm is also $100 a box at this time as well. So at this point, the soccer card market is still niche, but some of the holy grail cards that I talked about previously are now separating from the pack and seeing big price increases. So the Ronaldo rookie sticker doubles in price, Pele triples in price, and the Messi 71 Biz jumps about 10x in price from what we saw 4 years prior to this. So the most important thing to note, and the most interesting thing, at least in my opinion, is that despite his rise to stardom, nobody cares about Mbappe Prizm cards. With under $100, you could have bought a blue Prizm out of $199. I show it here that this raw blue Prizm out of $199 sold for $55 in September of 2018, which would have been after the World Cup final and pretty much at the height of the Mbappe craze at the time. So with just $55, you could have bought that blue Prizm out of $199. So this is just to show you that people really didn't care about that product or speculating on Mbappe like they do currently or during the boom. So again, just at the bottom of this page, showing off some other sports grails at the time, just to show that they were still really, really expensive. The Michael Jordan Fleer was now $38,000. The Mickey Mantle card in top grades was still around $500,000, and the Jerry Rice was still around $11,000. So soccer is starting to catch up a bit to some of these other sports, but Jordan is going up pretty high as well. But, of course, if you compare the Pele or the Ronaldo to any of these cards, they still look silly, silly low. Alrighty, then we'll move forward to the boom beginning. This is late 2019 to early 2020. This is around when I got into the market, so I know this phase of the market really well, along with the phases after that, because I've been in the market pretty much daily since this period. So, late 2019, a new wave of participants enter the market, but unlike previous participants that found their way to cards through their parents or through history collecting or hobbyists, many of these new participants are more entrepreneurs or self-proclaimed investors from cryptocurrency, sneaker flipping, etc., that were driven to the market by influencers and or the promise of huge potential returns. So the biggest of these influencers was Gary Vee at the time. He had hundreds of thousands of subscribers and followers, and he kept parading sports cards as being his passion and this huge investment that he thought was going to pay off. I remember there's a famous clip of him saying at some point in 2019 that Giannis Prizm rookie cards were the best possible investment that you could put your money into, better than any other asset out there. And so he was posting about sports cards pretty much daily, and all his followers were starting to get involved with the market. A lot of sneaker flippers got in the market, and so you have all these new people that are now jumping into the market at the same time. Not just because they're interested in it. Sure, a lot of people are interested in sports and sports cards, but they're really interested in the more entrepreneurial flipping and making money side of it that goes along with it as well. So in the months leading into 2020, the modern sports card market was on an extreme rise. Luka Doncic silver Prizms tripled in value from October of 2019 to December of 2019, and at the same time, Trae Young's silver Prizm rookie cards doubled as well. So despite the fact that a lot of what you hear is that COVID really boomed the sports card market, a few months prior to COVID, it was already really roaring and booming. So like it says here, Luka Doncic silver Prizms tripled in the 3 months leading up to the pandemic, and Trae Young doubled as well. So things were already really spinning in terms of people really getting involved and pumping money into this market. So at the same time that this is all going on, the soccer card grails see a slight bump. Messi 71 Biz and BGS 9 condition increases 28%. Mbappe, however, sees the extreme growth that Luka and Trae and all these speculative modern players are seeing. So I left this example here. It shows the Luka increase from 600 to 1500. It shows the limited Messi increase from 1250 to 1600, but it shows the crazy increase that Mbappe saw from $12 to $100, and this shows you the types of cards that these new entrants were really interested in buying and flipping and playing in the market with. Alrighty, then I have to talk about this. I know this is not soccer related, but Jordan and the NBA bubble are two of the biggest catalysts that move forward the sports card market in 2020. So we have to talk about this in mid-2020. COVID lockdowns start spreading across the globe, live sports are suspended, and work from home, unemployment, stimulus money, disposable income, PPP loans, all of this reach record levels. And with no live sports on television, ESPN decides to fast track their Michael Jordan documentary for an earlier release, which is in May of 2020. This is a huge success, with the documentary attracting viewer levels similar to live NBA playoff games. So instead of watching the NBA Western Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, at this time you were watching the Jordan documentary, and people treated that as a live sporting event. So with all the success of that, as well as the external factors at play, Jordan rookie card prices and Jordan prices in general went soaring, with his 86 Fleer rookie and PSA 10 condition doubling in a 45-day period from prior to the documentary's release and then during the documentary's release. So in 45 days, it grew from $45,000 to $96,000. And then to go along with this, you also had the NBA shut down its season due to COVID for a few months, but they kept rumors going around that they were going to complete the season in a quarantined bubble environment, and the rumors finally come to a head, and they announced that they're going to be doing it in June of 2020 in Orlando, Florida. So now the NBA playoffs are going to be the first big sport that is back. I know the Bundesliga was back first, but the sports card market really didn't care about the Bundesliga at the time. So this is really what really propelled the sports card market, was the NBA bubble being announced to come back. And so the NBA bubble playoffs begin in July, and those send modern basketball cards to record highs as well. So confidence in the market was restored. More market participants joined than ever. There was, again, work from home or no work, limited sports gambling alternatives. So all those factors lead into more market participants than ever. And there was also more money available than ever. There was more disposable income, stimulus checks, unemployment enhanced benefits, PPP loans, all that fun stuff. Interest rates were also really, really low at the time, so you could take out loans and buy sports card with them. And that's what some people did. So all these factors combined together, more market participants than ever, more money than ever, and a ton of attention on the NBA bubble, because this is the only live sporting event you have, and that causes the spikes that we see in the diagram down here, where Luka's prices in a 3 or 4 week period go from $2,000 to $8,000, $9,000. Alrighty, specifically talking about soccer here in mid-2020, everybody that was in the market at the time will refer to this as the Prizm boom. If you've been pretty deep in the stock card market at all, you've probably heard people talk about this, and so I wanted to give a general refresher of what happened here, because it's important to understand the factors that were at play and why this happened and why it's probably never going to happen again. So the basketball card market, as you saw previously, was soaring, and all other sports ended up following suit. So the new market participants, especially in the soccer market, vastly outnumbered the original collectors in the market, and they made their own interpretations of what should be valuable. So riding off the success of Prizm branded basketball card products, the new market participants in soccer declared that Prizm World Cup was the soccer card product to invest in. Old collectors placed little value on these Prizm World Cup cards, especially in relation to older sets and especially the base cards. So you have this new wave of investors, flippers, entrepreneurs that come into the soccer card market from other sports card markets that are roaring, and they see Prizm, and that's the brand they know, and so they say, hey, Prizm, this is what should be super valuable, and they all start buying that instead of any of the older sets, because they don't understand any of the older sets. They only really understand Prizm, and there's so many of them that becomes the narrative that these are the cards you should be going after. So, for example, there was a time when the 2014 Prizm Messi card was seen as the Messi rookie card. I know it sounds crazy, but this was a real thing. People thought that that was the Messi rookie card. They knew that there were earlier ones, but they didn't care about them at all, because they just cared about Prizm, because Prizm was the brand and all the other sports that they were making money on. So they just went to the Messi Prizm card. So all of that comes together, and you have this scenario, as I lay out here in the last bullet point, where base and silver Prizm cards were the most heavily transacted cards in basketball at the time. So the new market participants in soccer flocked to base and silver Prizm World Cup cards. And these cards were in such low graded supply, since none of the old participants wanted to grade them, and that resulted in the now hilarious Prizm boom that you see on these charts down below, where you have Neymar going from under $100 to $4,000 in a matter of a few weeks, and the same thing for all these other players. And again, the reason that this happens is because there are so few of these cards in PSA 10 condition graded, and all of a sudden a bunch of new market participants say these are the cards you need to have to invest in, and so prices just spike completely. And the reason they drop really fast on the other end is so many of them are raw and ungraded that people start to grade them to try and cash in on how much money they're worth. I mean, at this time, those cards prior to this explosion in price, those Neymars were less than $5 for base. Those Messis were less than $5 for base. The Mbappes were less than $10 for base. So people just started buying them up in base, grading them in bulk, and trying to cash in. And that's, of course, what causes the supply and demand to reset and create a graph that looks like this. Alrighty, so then we have Prizm busting and soccer booming in mid to late 2020. So as participants rush to grade their base and silver Prizm cards to cash in on the record highs, prices crash as supply in the population report outweighs the demand for those cards. Soccer cards continue to explode as participants journey into the soccer market and discover more and more sets, and grails really start to take off. So after everybody was so hot on the Prizm set, they start moving to all the other sets in the market to try and make money on those as well. And so more and more sets start getting more and more valuable because there's more and more participants and more money being poured into the soccer market. So it's also at this time that people really start focusing in on grails, at least either collectors that had made a bunch of money off of the new participants in the market or the new participants that actually did the research and found the grails. Those really started to take off. So it's important to remember that just like with Prizm, many soccer cards are at this time currently undergraded because so few people slabbed soccer cards prior to 2020, and this helps force up the prices of the few slabs that are on the market. So if you look at graphs and you see Phil Foden base optic cards or Kai Havertz base optic cards in PSA 10 condition that used to sell for hundreds and hundreds of dollars, Jadon Sancho chrome rookie cards in PSA 10 used to sell for $500+. That was because there were so few graded soccer cards at the time and so many people that wanted to get in on the market, and so they just paid insane prices in competition with each other for the very few cards that were slabbed. So, talking more specifically about these more grail type cards, the Messi increased 610% over the course of the 2020 year. The Pele Alifa Bullejet in PSA 2 condition increased 831% on the year. And then the really crazy one here is the Mbappe Kaboom in PSA 10 condition that increased 1,500% over the course of the year. So you can see these things really are really flying, with Mbappe doing the best because he is that ultra-modern player that the new participants in the market that are really attracted to and driven to speculating on. So I just wanted to put this up so you saw what other sports were doing at the time. As you can see, the Michael Jordan Fleer in PSA 9 condition was actually only up 143% on the year. The Mantle in PSA 1 condition was up around 100% on the year, but the Luka Doncic Silver Prizm was up around 1,200% on the year, again showing what the speculators were really flocking to at the time. And even if you look at the grails in other sports for vintage and pre-modern, soccer was far outpacing them. So as I say here, the rate of soccer card price growth was outpacing all other sports from 2019 to 2020, and the market had gone from a non-existent to mainstream market in just 12 months. As long as you avoided the base Prizm peaks, money was literally just being printed in the soccer card market because there was nobody in it before, and now there's this massive rush of people paying huge prices to get in on the soccer market, and there's not a lot of slabs out there, and there's more people than ever, so prices and the whole supply and demand thing gets really out of whack for soccer. Alrighty, then we get to the unbelievable peak of early 2021. So the world economy started to open back up in early 2021, but stimulus, enhanced unemployment benefits, work from home, low interest rates, and a booming sports card market continued. The flashpoint that led to the ultimate peak in early 2021 was the sale of two Michael Jordan Fleer rookies for over $500,000 on Golden in February of 2021, and that was more than 2 times the previous sale just 30 days earlier. So you have 2 Jordan cards sell for astronomically high prices. Despite being worth half of what they were 30 days ago, they explode in value, and everybody sees that. National headlines follow. Everyone in the market sees these sales as a sign that everything is going to go to the moon. Confirmation bias for those that are already in the market to deploy even more capital into the market, and FOMO for those outside of the market to get in now or risk missing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get these assets because they're all going to go to the moon, of course. So speculators, again, flock to every slab they possibly can. Buy the goats was the golden rule at the time. You heard everybody in the market talking about this. If you just buy the GOATs, you're all going to go to the moon. They can never go down in price because they're the greatest of all time. You sort of still hear some of this rhetoric, but not nearly as bad as it was then. But yeah, people thought no matter what price you paid, somebody will always come in and they'll be worth more than what you paid in the future because they're the GOATs and everybody wants to have these. So everyone starts spreading this sort of propaganda, and naturally soccer GOATs explode in price along with everything else. So again, so much money, so many people, so much FOMO, so much confirmation bias. People just keep buying these things for higher and higher and higher prices because they've never seen them do anything but go to the moon in price. And so you see here this Messi in PSA 9 condition tops out at $53,600 in February of 2021, despite it selling for only $21,000 just a few months earlier. The Pele goes from $75,000 to $340,000 in a few months, and the Mbappe that I showed previously that was already up 1,500% goes from $3,600 to $13,000. So as you can see, things get completely crazy. Everybody's in this euphoria mania phase of we're all going to be super rich. We're all going to live on yachts just based on our sports cards, and all this money keeps pouring in. But of course, the green line cannot go up forever. So let's quickly discuss the soccer peak versus other sports early 2021. So the Messi 71 bids in PSA 9 increased 151%. The Pele, as I said earlier, it increased 353%, and the Mbappe increased another 273%. When you compare that to other sports, the Jordan increased 263% in PSA 9 condition, the Mantle in PSA 1 increased 114%, and the Luka Doncic Silver Prizm only increased 7% because it was already so speculated on that even the people that came in with the Jordan sales didn't touch the Luka because it had already increased so much. They were more looking for things on GOAT levels that hadn't increased that much. It was purely just trying to get in on something before it went to the moon, and so since Luka had already gone to the moon, people were targeting other things. Alrighty, and this also time frame leads us to the Haaland sticker nonsense of early 2021. So in the middle of the sports card mania phase of February 2021, Haaland had a huge Champions League performance that shot his rookie sticker to insane price levels. I believe this was the match where he scored 2 goals and one of them was a crazy long shot. So people that were super keyed into the market, this is the maximum point of participants in the market, so there's more people in the market than ever, and there's more money at risk than ever. So when a player pops off like this, even if you're not interested in soccer, there was money being deployed. So I show you here that his card or sticker in PSA 10 condition was very consistently $1,500 through June, through August, and through December of 2020. But then you switch to February. On February 8th, it sells again for that $1,500, but 3 weeks later, February 24th, it sells for $8,050 after that Champions League performance, a 455% increase in just 3 weeks, an increase of, $6,500 in 3 weeks. So the sticker now sells at this time for around the same $1,500 price point that it did in 2020, and the population in PSA 10 has gone from 15 to 485. So like with the base Prizm boom, same thing happens with the Erling Haaland boom. A ton of people all of a sudden really want to buy a Haaland sticker or rookie card, and he doesn't really have a lot of rookie cards released at the time, so this is one of the only things you can buy for Haaland, and there's only 15 of them in PSA 10 condition, so people start bidding like crazy against each other to try and get in on this before they lose out on this next huge investment, and it causes the sticker to go from $1,500 to $8,000. It peaks out at around $10,000, and then of course as more get graded, demand starts to subside, especially as prices start to decrease on some other guys in other sports, and so naturally supply and demand has now worked it back down to that $1,500 price point that it was at previously. Alrighty, and then we get to the crash of mid-2021 through the end of 2022. So by mid-2021, COVID guidelines had been cast aside by the majority of the United States. Stimulus and enhanced unemployment benefits also came to an end, along with PPP loans, and interest rates started increasing. And so all the macroeconomic factors that were in the sports card market favor before are now working against it, and life is returning to a new normal. So as the money started to roll into the sports card market at a much slower rate and prices began to fall, more and more of the flippers or speculators exited the market because they were just in it for the free money, and now the free money is not easy and it's harder to get and things are starting to go down in price. So rather than actually participate in the market as a collector, they just all leave because they were just in it for the money anyways. So, and of course, anyone who bought anything near the top got absolutely crushed on their values, and their sports cars declined like crazy because they bought them at insane inflated prices. So, additionally, anyone who purchased cards on margin had their margins called, crushing the ultra high-end side of the market as well. This is something I discussed previously in a video about the high-end market and how it drops just like the low-end market did. You had I don't know how many people it was, but you had people taking out loans to buy sports cards, and when those sports cards dropped in value a ton, they got margin called on them and had to sell them, and so that dipped the high-end market just like it did the low-end market. So yeah, everything just starts crashing down. I show you on these graphs here that the Messi in PSA 9 condition topped out at around $75,000, $80,000, and this Kylian Mbappe Silver Prizm topped out at around $12,000, and both of those have come way, way down from their previous highs to where they are at currently. Alrighty, so let's talk about the future, 2023 and beyond. Where is the bottom? So one of the most popular questions in the hobby in early 2023 has been, where is the bottom? How much more room do prices have to fall? So Jeff from Sports Card Investor put out a video a few weeks ago where he claimed that he believes the floor price for any meaningful card, which means non-prospect or non-speculative, will be at around 40 to 100% above the pre-pandemic prices. I think this might be somewhat good, but I believe the bottom for soccer is much harder to predict than any of the other major sports and will not fall in line with them. Why is that? Because soccer cards, as I've shown you, as a market and as a hobby, did not exist prior to the pandemic. The other sports have long histories of cards being highly valuable, and soccer does not. I showed you that just 10 years ago, Messi, Ronaldo, and Pele rookies in top condition were $500 to $1,000. Even in 2019, you could have bought a Pele Alifa for around $1,000. You could have bought a Ronaldo rookie in PSA 10 for around $1,000 or $1,500. You could have bought a Messi PSA 9 rookie for around $1,000. So, and nobody cared about Prizm. Nobody cared about Chrome. Soccer did not have a market that had values prior to the pandemic. So the question of where's the bottom of the soccer market depends mainly, in my opinion, on how many real soccer collectors were picked up during the pandemic versus flippers trying to make easy money on a rising tide. Again, I think this is the most important question to ask when it comes to the values of soccer in the short time frame and going forward is how many real collectors did we pick up versus flippers and investors and speculators that are leaving and continue to leave as the money continues to dry up in this market. So let's talk about this with some specific examples. So this is the Messi 71 Biz in BGS 9, and let's work through some examples of where we think the bottom for this card might be. So in BGS 9 condition, the last sale before this thing went crazy was $1,500 in February of 2020. In early 2023, the price is $7,500. So these are the questions, at least in my opinion, you have to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out where the bottom is. So based on the population report increases, if you believe the demand for this card is the same as it was pre-pandemic, the price that it would be currently based on its population report increase is around $1,200. If you believe the demand for this card is 2x what it was pre-pandemic, its price should be around $2,400. And if you believe the demand for this card is 5x what it was pre-pandemic, then you probably believe the price should be around $6,000. The current price, which is $7,500, indicates that demand for this card has increased by 6x pre-pandemic. So if you believe that the demand for this card has increased at a higher rate than 6x versus pre-pandemic, then you probably think it's undervalued at $7,500. If you believe that the demand for this card has not increased by 6x and is actually lower, then you probably think $7,500 is too high for this card. I'm not going to speculate or give my opinion on which side of the coin I would be on, but that's the sort of math that you would go through to try and figure out where you think the bottom is going to be for this card. Then we'll move forward with the Pele Alifa. So the last sale before this one went crazy was $1,675 in October of 2019, and in early 2023, the price is $21,000. Given the population report increases, if you believe that the demand for this card is the same as it was pre-pandemic, it should be selling for around $1,150. If you believe the demand is 2x what it was pre-pandemic, the price would be $2,300. And if you believe the demand for this card is 5x what it was pre-pandemic, its price should be sitting around $5,700. So The current price of this Pele Alifa Polo Jet in PSA 2 condition indicates the demand has increased by 18x versus pre-pandemic. So again, same question. Do you think the demand for this card is increased by more than 18x? Then you think it's probably undervalued right now. If you think the demand for this Pele Alifa has increased less than 18x, then you probably think this is overvalued at its current price of $21,000. And then quickly with a Mbappe Silver Prizm, same example. This is actually the hardest one to predict because its population report has increased like crazy, and we don't really have population report data in 2019. That only became available to us from a population growth metric in 2021-ish. So this is harder to predict, but I did my best. The last sale was $121 in December of 2019 before things went crazy, and the early 2023 price is $950. So in my opinion, if you believe the demand for this card was the same as it was pre-pandemic, its price would be $40, and that is assuming that its population has tripled. Honestly, I think the population could have more than tripled as to where it was in 2019, but I just went with tripling. Feel free to change the numbers however you want. This is the type of math you would be doing to try and determine this. If you believe the demand for this card is 2x what it was pre-pandemic, its price would be $80. And if you believed the demand for this card is 5x what it was pre-pandemic, you would be at around $200. The current price for this card indicates that demand has increased by, in my opinion, at least 24x versus pre-pandemic. So if you think the demand has increased by more than 24x, you probably think it's undervalued right now. Whereas if you think the demand has not increased by 24x and it's actually lower, then you probably think that this is overvalued and therefore has even more room to fall than it already has. Again, I'm not going to give my opinion on either of these, but feel free to speculate on it. These are the numbers I'm playing with. You can feel free to adjust the population report increases to whatever you want them to be and estimate out the demand multipliers however you want to do it. But this is the general math I would follow in theory to try and figure out where the bottom might be on these things and figure out, in your opinion, if you think things are under or overvalued compared to what they were worth pre-pandemic. Okay, quickly, let's go through the card ladder indexes of late 2019 to early 2023. Yes, the card ladder indexes are flawed, as shown by United States Men's National Team Soccer Cards, or Alec. He has a great video on it, but they are the best at-a-glance metric that we have currently for soccer cards and the soccer card market. So I will continue to use it just because it's an easy catch-all, and personally, I do not have the time to build my own index. So we'll just be using theirs, understanding that it is flawed. So their overall soccer card index from late 2019 to early 2023 was up 727%. Baseball at the same time frame was up 200%, and basketball was up 300%. The Messi card index was up 744%, and the LeBron card index was up 400%. Pele was up 575%, while Mantle was up 200%. Mbappe is up 632%, whereas Luka is up 263%. So, while these comparisons are not perfect and they do not take into account things like population changes in reports, they do show that soccer has majorly outperformed other sports in prices from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. So, does this mean that the soccer card market has grown in its number of market participants at a higher rate than other sports, or does this show that soccer has more room to fall? So again, I won't speculate and give my opinion on this, but these are the numbers that are out there, and you need to answer the question of, do you think the reason soccer is outperforming all these other sports is because there are more market participants and more money involved in the market than there was in the pre-pandemic phase, especially compared to the other sports on soccer? Or do you think soccer has some more room to fall to get more in line with what we see in other sports? Alrighty, and with that, we will move into the conclusion where I say, do I know where the soccer card market is heading over the next year? Nope. Do I know where the soccer card market is heading over the next 5, 10, or 20 years? Nope. I can speculate on it, and I'm personally bullish for the reasons I'll discuss here, but there are also some reasons, of course, to be cautious and some negatives on the horizon as well. So, on the more bullish side, soccer is the biggest sport in the world and one of the fastest growing in America. The growing card market has a presence in Europe and Asia as well. Fanatics is this giant marketing machine, and they now have the levers at which to pull on the sports card market, so perhaps they could get it to a newer audience and further increase the number of market participants and money money in the system. Also, gambling is becoming more ingrained with sports culture. For better or for worse, sports gambling is going to be legalized in just about every state in the United States over the next few years, and there's no real way to stop it. So gambling is going to become more and more ingrained with sports culture, and prospecting is equivalent to gambling, so I could see the connection between sports cards and gambling continuing to grow within the culture. And as I discussed in a complete video, population reports on vintage and certain pre-modern key cards are low in comparison to other sports. If you want to get my opinions on vintage and pre-modern and why I love certain cards in those eras, feel free to check out my video on that. I believe it's called something like Why I Love Vintage and Pre-Modern in the Long Run. It's another 45-minute video that you can enjoy. I would grab some water and snacks to get through that one if you've watched this one as well. It's a bit of a marathon, but I do go through all my reasonings why I'm bullish on that part of the market in that video. But of course, there are reasons to be bearish. One of these reasons would be that if this was a once-in-a-lifetime event for soccer cards in particular, and if they're destined to return to their pre-pandemic prices, and if this is true, there's still a long way for these prices to fall. So if the vast majority of people in the soccer market were just concerned with getting in and making a bunch of money, they will continue to exit the market until the prices return to their pre-pandemic levels. And if that's the case, we still have a long way to drop in these next few years in terms of pricing. Another bearish thing is, does the soccer card market ever actually pick up in Europe like we hope it does? We know that there's a huge passion for the sport there, but valuing sports cards so highly isn't really a thing in their culture. I know they value Pokemon cards and TCGs and cards like that very, very highly, but sports cards, that hasn't really been a thing as to what I'm aware of, so you would need that to pick up as well, and maybe it does not. You also have, does Fanatics care enough about soccer to advertise it, and will that even matter? So Fanatics is going to push basketball, baseball, and football in America. We know that because that's what they do and that's what they're really good at. But do they care enough about soccer to advertise it? And even if they do advertise it, are people going to get into soccer cards? The fruits of that labor are yet to be determined. You also have things like digital collectibles coming in. Maybe that's the way of the future rather than sports cards. And you also have the overprinting of modern and ultra-modern product. I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. So at least on those sides of the market, I would be very bearish on that. So with all that being said, in the very bottom right-hand corner, this is going to be the last sign-off of the video. Remember to collect what you love, and if you're speculating, only speculate on what you can afford to lose. For the reasons displayed below and in previous videos, I am very bullish on this market, but there are, of course, reasons to be bearish as well. And so I hope you enjoyed today's video, this review of the soccer card market and its history and maybe what is to come in the future. Feel free to leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Feel free to join the Discord link in the description to join the Soccer Study Discord, where we talk about things like this, maybe not in so much detail, but you can talk about soccer cards with some great community members. And you can also feel free to follow me on Instagram, where I post some soccer card content, more of like what I'm buying and selling and that sort of thing on there. So with that all being said, I thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for this long video. I hope you learned something, and I will see you guys in the next video.